Hello, everybody. It's me, Lemoni, and I'm back again with my friend Urs for episode 3 of the New World Report. Urs, how are you feeling today?
Brother, I am good. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Let's just say that.
We got stuff to talk about. As always, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna cover my 3 topics, give you a nice, lively, thorough, deep discussion like normal. And what I want you to do is then, when you're all done here, head over to Urz's channel, hit that like, the comment, the subscribe, and ring that bell over there. Do all the normal weird YouTube stuff so you can get the rest of the episode. But today, we have some big things. So we had a pretty big patchers, pretty big
Mutator.
patch mutators. We're here, they're here. It's interesting, and I want to start off talking about recommended gear score.
Okay.
Now, for those of you who don't know, there's all kinds of charts and things you can look at to understand like how much of a decrease you're going to get from this and how it's going to affect you. But right now in the mutators, there's a system. And if you look when you're starting your mutator key, there will be a gear score that is recommended to you. If you hover over the little question mark right next to it, it's going to say, if you are not at the gear score we recommend for this, you will be doing decreased damage and taking more damage.
Oof.
And that's a big oof. Now,
Oof.
there's people are figuring out, okay, like how low do you have to be to actually get a decrease? But in general, even if you're 1 point below, you're still going to see something from this happening. It's not as drastic. But starting off, I mean, what a +1 is a recommended, what is it, 600 or is it 602? It's either 600 or 602. So
Right.
right off the bat, if you aren't in with full legendaries, you're doing decreased damage and you're taking more damage. Now I have some very mixed feelings about this because it's doable, right? I would say I haven't had a ton of time to do them, but I would say with my group right now, we could probably bronze a 6 or a 7. I think we could get that with an
Right.
pretty low gear score. But we're hitting this wall of an artificial grind that is not based upon difficulty mechanics and simply time-based grinding of Umbral Shards to improve our gear score. Now, Urs, I know we talked, a little bit before the show about this, just our general feelings. But here's for me what I think. All right,
Okay.
I'm gonna just start off because this is something I'm feeling real strong about. I think if you look at any kind of game, whether you look at you know plus plus 10 mythic plus in WoW, or you look at some kind of challenging Final Fantasy raid or something like that, what it comes down to at the end of the day is yes, there is a component of you need to push a certain check based upon gear, but they never once nerf the player and nerf the player's skill for the content. Okay.
Right.
There's never a direct nerf. It is simply there's more health, there's more damage. You have to play better. Okay. And then there's a point of sure, you do need gear to a certain extent, but not like anything I've ever seen before coming out of New World. So I will say I've seen people run plus 8, 9, 10s. They do not look mechanically challenging at all. Where the difficulty is coming in is that they do not hit the 625 recommended gear score or whatever it is, and they just get one shot by a normal auto attack that they'd get hit by in any other run. Now,
Right.
how do you feel about it, Urs?
Now, so this is you sort of hit on the major problem I think I have with mutators, and then you sort of talked about the damage reduction going in, not having like the full
Mm,
recommended. I think you're taking a damage hit. I think mutators in general have really just fundamentally changed the way I've played the game, and I went from we sort of talked before this about me enjoying OPR and doing my gypsum runs and things like that,
yep.
and because in order for me to advance whatever gear pieces I want, I got to be expertise 600. So basically, right now, for me, Umbral Shards are pretty much meaningless at this point until I get all my expertise up to 600 plus. Now, there is a very small population of people that have sweated the hell out of this game that actually have 600 gear score across the board. So
Yep.
for me, like I am so far behind that like damage curve thing that like it's just not even feasible for
Yeah.
me to
Yeah.
really like. So basically I've had to go back in the way I play this game where I enjoyed doing OPR. Now I'm doing gear score runs.
Mhm.
I'm doing what people have been doing for like the last 3 months this game has been out. Now I'm having to do that, and I can't even enjoy the mutator content because my gear score is so low, and people don't want to bring someone like me into a mutator that's high level because I'm just going to be a detriment to the team.
Yes. And here's the thing too now is like when you look at it from PvP, like PvP, you can't, everybody who has been grinding this content, then they're 625 and they're way stronger in PvP. But here's the other thing is there's no point to PvP, right? Like if you think about it, like you're not going to be getting any gain out of it. Like sure, it's fun. Like I'm going to still do OPR because it's fun, but right now, from a point of character progression, there's literally not much
Yeah.
there.
So we talked
And so
we talked about this pre-stream. This is
yes,
the main problem is that
yes.
the gear score and expertise jumps you are getting to doing Laz is just insane compared
Yeah.
to everything else in the game. So why would you waste your time when you could take 30, 40 minutes and do a Laz run? Why would you waste any time doing OPR when you can see 7 gear score bumps in one Laz run?
And so this is something I've been seeing firsthand, right? I talk about Dan just about every week for some reason, but we've been pushing him through stuff. And we're trying to push his expertise because we need him to get more gear because he's one of our core members of our pushing group. And
Yep.
he is not at the recommended, even I was saying this to Urs, in a +2, okay? +2. I am a full focus spec healer hitting almost double what he is hitting off of a crit on a normal light attack, which
Yeah.
is insane to me for a full spec damage dealer. Like
So
I don't know.
what they've achieved is alienating the player base, right? You have
Yes,
someone that
yeah,
didn't sweat, like me, like Dan, and then you have
yeah, I can attest, right? Not to cut you off, but I'm on the sweaty side of I am full 600,
yep,
and I see both sides of it, and I think even as a 600 player, it's kind of like, what am I doing? You know, and
yeah,
it's
and that sort of speaks to another point that we talked about sort of off stream was that there's no real point in sweating this stuff because this is your content
yes.
up until March.
Yes. So I think for anybody who's kind of, and I know we're kind of saying like, oh, we're not able to do this, so we're not able to enjoy mutators. There is the light at the end of the tunnel being, and you can take this a bunch of different ways. February is going to be a bunch of bug fixes. There's not going to be new content coming. So people do not stress, don't sweat. You will get your +10s. You will get all your content in. This is what you will be seeing until March. So there's that. But I kind of want to go back on something you said before. Why not just chain run last, right? That's the truth, right? Right now, you are getting crazy drops. And I think this is looking at everything. What's the one cherry on top that we can actually take and be like, hey, this is a good thing? When you look at expeditions before this update, expedition keys were like 3K, 2K, 4K to like buy
Yeah.
in, whatever
Yep.
it is.
Yep.
Right now, you can get into a run and you will net more gold running it. You do have to craft it, but at least you can buy the crafting materials. There's multiple sources. We can go buy one with faction tokens.
Yep.
We can craft our two. They aren't as valuable, so we can get into keys. And there are a lot of drops coming out of them, especially Laz. That's why we're emphasizing Laz. There's way more that drops out of Laz just consistently than Gen, and it takes less time. But that I think is the thing where I'm like, okay, you know what? I know this has kind of shifted our recommended gear score discussion, but in terms of content from the patch, it is nice to be able to be like, hey, I want to run an expedition and be able to get into a group.
Yeah, I agree. There's a whole lot we want to talk about in terms of changes as well. So do you want to pivot to the next topic?
Yeah, let's pivot. Let's pivot on over. I want to talk to you about what are your top 3 most wanted changes coming in the future. What kinds of things would you be like, hey, I want this to change right now, tomorrow? Top 3, hit me.
You have to give solo players some way of keeping up. That regardless if they want to admit this or not, there is a huge population of people that play this game as a solo player. And if the expectation is the only way you're going to be able to advance your gear score from 600 to 625 is doing mutators with a group of 4 other people that are highly coordinated, that takes 40 minutes of your time. I mean, Lemoni, I always talk about on stream, I work from home and sometimes I have the game up while I'm on conference calls. I need something that I can be like grinding while on conference calls, where I'm paying attention to the call, but I need to be able to grind something so I can feel like I'm progressing in the game. There's just no reasonable way I could enter a mutator and do that. It requires comms, it requires coordination. They have to have a way of allowing solo players to keep up. And that is the number one thing I will always harp on. There has to be something.
Okay.
What do you think?
100%. I agree with that 100%. I think right now when you're a solo player, it is tough. It is tough. It is tough. It is tough to keep up with everything that's going on. Pretty much every solo player that I know is either quit or they just aren't at this point yet and they can't really do anything. The game hasn't really changed for them. So I think solo player thing is big. We need something there. I would 100%.
And I just one more point on that. Like my guild, so I have a pretty strong guild. They're a pretty good group of guys. They're a group of fun guys that they play primarily at night, 11 p.m. my time to 2 a.m. And like Like I work full time and I'm a content creator and a dad. Like there's just no way that I
Yep.
can play at the same time
Yeah.
they are playing. And it's not like my guild isn't active. It's just like I'm one of the only dudes on and during the day. And that's just the reality.
Listen, here's the fix I have for that. I don't go to bed until like 3 in the morning, and I wake up at 6, 7 the next day. That's how you got to do it,
Yeah,
apparently.
right.
But
So you're going to be dead in 2 years. Okay.
yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. So I would say, how about we do this? You give me one, I give you one. We do that kind of thing,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. So that was my one.
So
Solo players. You're,
that's your one.
yep.
My one. Get rid of tuning orbs. That is my hottest take. Get rid of tuning orbs. I know I just said, it's great that we're able to do Laz and Gen based upon prices of tuning orbs and things like that. But now here is my major issue of things that I had happen this week. Mutator orbs. I sat there for an hour and a half trying to buy people's orbs and didn't get a single one because so many people are trying to buy them. And then now that was at the beginning of the week. Then you hit the end of the week where everybody who's not running their mutator orbs have sold theirs, and everybody who wants to run is, they burned those through and they're trying to buy more. Then nobody's running them because there's this drought, right?
Yeah.
So we hit this point with mutator orbs of now we have this artificial drought of nobody's running anything because nobody can get a key, and then people aren't ready for it yet. So they're stockpiling their keys. Then we can't get into the key. And then I want to save my key for my group so I can run with them and not waste it on other people so that we can run most effectively and I can help my people out. And it's just a mess.
Yeah.
That's thoughts.
I sort of like the system. So I like, as you know, when we talked last week, I hadn't run Laz at all prior to this.
Yep.
So this was all new content for me. We ran Laz, got the codex, and then everybody who ran Laz with me got an orb in return for doing that. And then we sort of burned through our group and we ran it all like 4 or 5 times, and had other people rotate in and things like that. But now we're at that point where the drought happened, and it's just like, well, how much do I reasonably want to pay for something like this? And like you said, it actually made me respect to a tank because it's actually cheaper for tanks to get into stuff like that. So I went from DPS to tank this week, and sword and board and hammer.
That's a big change.
Yeah.
It's different, right? But it's like that's the game we play right now. Tuning ours is figuring out how can we get into, and tanking too. That's going to get you into the most groups, right?
Yep.
And people are like, hey, we need a tank or a healer, or like those utility classes, and it's just that I think it's an interesting mechanic, but I think you always have this drought towards the end of the week where people are like, hey, I need to get into a key, but there's no keys to get into, or you have the stockpiling. That's kind of where I'm at.
Absolutely.
All right, hit me with your next one.
Next recommendation for me, I still feel like OPR needs a good look at. Obviously, like with the shift to mutators we talked before, I haven't done a single OPR since feeling like my character basically got hurt since the update. So like a lot of players out there, I had like the full set of legendaries we talked about on previous New World reports, where when I hit 60, I just went and bought the legendaries I want. That's just sort of how you had to do it. Well, all my gear score got halved with that new update that went in. And basically, like, I feel like I've just lost my competitive edge. One, with mutators now driving the end game player higher and higher up, it's actually halved my score. I feel like I'm completely nullified in anything I do in OPR.
Question. So was that all gear you bought before the patch, or like did that all go down to half, or is that
it did go down? And there was stuff I had bought.
I thought,
they talked about grandfathering in. Unless I'm mistaken in chat, or leave a comment down below if I'm wrong. But I see a halved gear score across the board.
Yeah, because I could have sworn, but maybe because we bought. Regardless, right? But even if it isn't like that, you can't swap out of different gear sets. So now that you're sword and board, you have to re-gear. You're going to be way lower than you were before.
Sword and board sword and board and hammer was like the only thing I had at 5.9.
You had left, okay, yeah. All right.
So
then it's like
it's
it's. But even if you want to switch between different specs now, you're kind of like pigeonholed in the sense of, all right, I'm gonna have to buy all new armor, but then it's gonna go half of whatever it is if my expertise isn't there. So it's tough right now. It's tough.
All right, let's do one more from you, and then we'll move on to Umbral Shards.
Yep. I think my last thing is. This was like my second one, was like gear score, give us more options to get it up, not just, chain running last. But this is going to really transition. The big thing I want to see is more instance group PvE content, but also end game PvP content that rewards the player. So, not just OPR, give us something for the PvP player that is like an expedition, but giving them expertise increases. Because right now it's just PvE focused.
I
But
think
now, no, go ahead.
I was thinking
Go ahead.
a
All you.
perfect opportunity for something like that would be like 3v3 arenas.
Yes. Yes.
There's some sort of goal in the middle for controlling a point. There's
Yep.
respawn. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so many
There's
different
something.
ways they can do that. There has to be something though, right?
Give us an equivalent of chain running expeditions for the PvP player. 100%. Now, instance group PvE content, what do I mean by that? This is something I have wanted since day one, since doing my very first chest run. Make these chest run zones instanced and let us have to actually kill things and get expertise increases that way. So then we don't have the tuning orb issue of like, hey, I want to get expertise increases. You queue up with a group of 5. You go in here, however you want to do it. Get rid of the Zerg runs that lag the server and just go around and grab chests. Make those zones like a giant instanced thing that you run through. It's a lot more fun. It's more interesting. 5, 10 man, whatever. Make it big group PvE content. Give us more. I don't know. But make it so it's instanced and we can't throw 300 people in there to just brute force our way to hit each chest. That's my biggest one ever.
Yep.
All
Amen. All right. So we're at 16 minutes right now. Let's see if we can fire through Umbral Shards here.
All right, Umbral Shards. Umbral Shards. One thing, okay, you're going to be struggling to get them. It's tough. I think the biggest thing that we touched on Urs was that 590 to 600 mark of it is just tough to upgrade your items. So how can we most effectively get our Umbral Shards? I'm going to give you my pros tip, and this is what I wanted to say. Stockpile your casts if you hit 590. Okay, once you've hit 590, then you get to 600. Start stockpiling casts. Once you get to about 620 gear score, and I know it's going to be tough, but do whatever, but start stockpiling them because when you open them, you get Umbral Shards from them. As you get your gear scores higher on each slot, you'll get more. So when you open up like a 621, you'll get 100 Umbral Shards, right? It's just more and more and more. So that's my biggest tip is if you have something that's already maxed out, just start saving the cast for it because you'll start getting some Umbral Shards for it.
And
I think that's
okay.
anything on Umbral Shards.
The only thing I want to add to Umbral Shards is it's just sort of silly right now for me because like
Yes.
I have 2 items that are gear score 600 that I could feasibly try and upgrade. But like it's just like everything else is so far behind in my gear score because I didn't sweat the game that Umbral Shards just sort of don't matter to me right now. So I mean, the best thing I'm getting out of these Laz and Gen and all these other Dynasty will be the gear score bumps, which are if we want to say one positive about this update, it is that the gear score bumps are very generous if you go through the content. But again, you're limited in the amount of times you can do that. So yeah.
Yep. So when it comes down to Umbral Shards, stockpile them, do whatever you can, and don't be afraid to just chain run like M3s over and over and over again just to start getting your gear up. You're gonna need to do it. Don't be afraid to spend your Umbral Shards. I think at the end of the day is what I would like to say.
Perfect.
All right. Any last thoughts or any shout outs, anything like that?
No, we will see you guys over on my video, over on my channel.
Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, do everything, and head on over to Ursa's channel. Thanks, everybody.